You didn't choose most of what you believe. I know that's uncomfortable to hear, but sit with it for a second. The way you see yourself, the things you think you deserve, the limits you assume are just yours. Most of that wasn't decided by you. It was decided for you, quietly, over time, by people who never once sat you down and said, "Here's what I want you to think about yourself." And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Because if someone tells you something directly, if they look you in the eye and say, "You're not smart enough," or "You'll never be successful," your brain fights back. You get defensive, you argue, you reject it. But if they do it without words, you never see it coming. And by the time you realize your beliefs have shifted, you've already been living by someone else's rules for years. This is something I've spent over 2 decades studying. The psychology behind silent influence. The way beliefs get rewritten not through conversation, but through something far more subtle, far more powerful, and honestly, far more terrifying once you understand how it works. So let's get into it. There's a concept in behavioral psychology called social referencing. It's something babies do before they can even speak. A toddler will reach for something, a new toy, a stranger's hand, and before they touch it, they look at their parent's face, not to ask a question, not to have a conversation, just to read the reaction. And based on that reaction, a smile, a flinch, a subtle look of worry, the child decides whether the world is safe or dangerous. No words, no explanation, just a face. Now here's what most people don't realize. You never stop doing this. You are doing this right now, every single day. Reading the faces, the body language, the energy of the people around you, and silently updating your beliefs about yourself and the world based on what you see. The only difference between you and that toddler, you don't even know you're doing it. Think about someone you grew up around, a parent, an older sibling, a coach, a teacher, someone who had authority in your life. Now think about how they reacted when you did something. Not what they said, how they reacted. Times did they light up? Did they go quiet? Did they change the subject the moment you walked in the room excited about something? Did they sigh in a specific way that you learned to recognize before they even opened their mouth? Those reactions, those wordless, automatic, completely deniable responses were carving grooves into the way you see yourself. And here's the thing, the person doing it often had no idea. They weren't sitting in a chair somewhere plotting how to reshape your self-concept. They were just reacting, based on their own fears, their own limitations, their own unresolved stuff. But your brain was treating every one of those reactions as data, as evidence, as truth. There's a term for this in psychology. It's called parasocial belief transmission. Times, the idea that beliefs don't just get passed down through what people say to us. They get passed through what people consistently show us, through behavior, through patterns, through what's celebrated and what's ignored. And it works like this. When someone in your environment consistently reacts to your ambition with doubt, not criticism, just doubt, just that subtle, are you sure energy, your brain starts to associate ambition with risk, with potential embarrassment, with the possibility of disappointing someone. You don't decide that. You absorb it. And over time, you start pulling back on your own ambitions, not because you consciously believe you can't do something, but because something in you feels like you shouldn't even try. That feeling has a source, and the source isn't you. But it gets more complicated than that, because it's not just about negative reactions. Sometimes belief reprogramming happens through what people don't react to. This is the part most people completely miss. When you did something that felt meaningful to you, when you created something, achieved something, shared something, and the people around you just didn't respond. Not negatively, not positively, just silence, just a nod, just, "That's nice," and then moving on. What did that teach you? It taught you that the thing you cared about wasn't worth caring about. It taught you that your inner world, the stuff that actually lights you up, isn't interesting to other people, isn't valuable, isn't real. And so you learned to shrink it, to keep it quiet, to treat your own passions like something slightly embarrassing. Nobody told you to do that. But here you are. Now I want to introduce you to something called behavioral modeling, because this is where it gets really interesting. Human beings are wired to copy, not just actions, not just language. We copy belief systems. Times we copy the way people move through the world, their assumptions, their confidence levels, their sense of what's possible. And we do it most powerfully with the people we spend the most time with. There's that old idea, you're the average of the 5 people closest to you. Most people hear that and think it's about success habits, work ethic, ambition. But it goes so much deeper than that. You're absorbing their ceilings, times the invisible height limit they've placed on what's achievable, the quiet resignation they've made peace with, the way they talk about people who want more, with a kind of eye roll, a kind of who do they think they are energy. And if you're around that long enough, even if no one ever tells you to lower your expectations, you lower them. Because your nervous system is looking for what's normal, what's safe, what keeps you connected to your tribe. And somewhere along the way, their limits become your limits without a single conversation about it. Here's a story I want you to really sit with. There was a study, and I want you to think about this carefully, where researchers placed a group of people in a room with a confederate, someone secretly working with the researchers. And in this room, there was a line on the board, a clear, unambiguous line. The confederate, without saying a word, would look at a shorter line and nod confidently. Just a nod. No explanation, no argument, and a significant portion of participants, people with perfectly working eyes and brains, began to second-guess what they were seeing. Not because of an argument, not because of evidence, because of a confident nod from someone nearby. Now multiply that by years, by childhood, by every authority figure who ever communicated through their behavior what reality was supposed to look like. Your sense of what's true, what's possible, what you're capable of. It's been getting quietly negotiated by the non-verbal confidence of the people around you your entire life. That's not a small thing. So let me ask you something directly. Is there something you want, genuinely want to know, that you've never fully let yourself pursue? Something you've written off as not realistic or not for someone like me? Where did that story come from? Did you sit down one day and think through the evidence and rationally conclude that you couldn't do it? Or did you just absorb it? Did someone's reaction teach it to you? Did years of watching certain things go uncelebrated convince you not to want them? Because here's what most people never stop to examine. The beliefs that feel most like you, the ones that feel like basic facts about who you are, those are almost always the ones that were installed the earliest, the quietest, the ones you never had a chance to argue with because they never came as arguments. They came as glances, as sighs, as what got clapped for and what got a polite smile. And this works in reverse too. This is important. The same mechanism that was used, knowingly or not, to shrink your beliefs. You can use it deliberately to expand them. When you spend time around people who treat your potential as obvious, not people who hype you up, not cheerleaders, but people who just assume you're capable the way they assume the sun will rise, something in your nervous system starts to update. When someone consistently reacts to your ideas with genuine interest, without that barely hidden skepticism you've been trained to expect, your brain starts renegotiating what's possible for you. No one has to say, "I believe in you." The belief gets transmitted through the reactions, through the pattern of how they show up when you show up. This is why environment is everything, not because of advice or motivation, because of the silent, ongoing broadcast of beliefs that happens between human beings just by being near each other. You are always being programmed. The question is, by whom and toward what? Now here's the part I want you to really take with you. Once you understand this, once you see the mechanism clearly, you get a choice that most people never have. Because most people go through their entire lives running belief software that was written by someone else in a different era of their life for circumstances that no longer exist. The beliefs are running, but the programmer left the building 20 years ago. And the first step, the only real first step, is to get curious about where your limits actually come from. Not defensive, not angry, just genuinely curious. The next time you feel that quiet pull away from something you want, that "I probably shouldn't" feeling, ask yourself whose voice that actually is, whose reaction you're preemptively managing, whose disappointment you're trying to avoid before you've even started. Because 9 times out of 10, that voice isn't yours. It never was. You didn't choose most of what you believe, but from here, you can. And that's where it actually gets interesting. If this hits somewhere real, drop a comment. I read every single one. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it to them. No explanation needed, they'll know why.